Basically, scope shadow and parallax is one of the biggest problems that we run into, and not necessarily the scope or the scope shadow, but the issue of parallax. It's it's actually the top problem that we deal with every week. So let's go and get into the issue. So parallax is basically when we have a target focused on a different plane than the actual reticle. All right. So what we do when we remove parallax, we actually pull that target focus into the reticle. So no matter where my eye is in the scope, the reticle is not moving on target. So when we have parallax in our scope and we move our head up and down, we get a movement of the reticle on target. That tells me I have parallax. Well, people go, well, how much does it matter? So you're going to adjust your ocular and actually get the reticle in super clear focus, and you adjust the target. The problem is a lot of the younger military guys that I train every week, their eyes are constantly adjusting and making that reticle in focus. So this is the reason it's actually really hard to actually see parallax in the scope unless they're moving their head up and down and actually looking for parallax from the reticle moving on target. The problem is if you move your head and the reticle moves slightly and you move your head down and it comes up or down in a relationship, where is your target in reality, or where is your reticle on target? So you really don't know. But if you have equal scope shadow, this actually tells you exactly that your reticle is where you perceive it to be, and that's what we're looking for. So cheek welds, back early in my career when we were training military, the cheek weld was a very important thing when we were actually setting up a weapon system. The reality was we was just trying to be in a very consistent spot, all right, with our eye in the scope. Unfortunately, at that time, we didn't want to see any scope shadow. We just made sure the guy had no scope shadow, and we'd set up his cheek weld and say, okay, you're good, next student, move on. The problem there is we may not have his eye in the center of the scope, but his cheek weld gave him a consistent spot to put his face, a consistent spot for his eye to be in the scope. But then when we changed from prone position to an elevated position, shooting off shooting six or whatever, it changed our relationship between our cheek and our eye in the scope, and therefore we'd get a different impact point. So this became a problem. So scope shadow is a element that can fix the problem for you. Whether you're young, you have really good eyes and they're adjusting constantly, and you're correcting for the ocular focus and your reticle's always in focus, and you adjust the target focus, which we call parallax, and it brings it into focus, you still may have parallax in the scope. So when you move your head up and down, now the reticle is moving on target, that's parallax. So if you pull your head back and get equal scope shadow, and we're not talking looking through a straw, we're actually just a little bit of fuzz on the outside edge, and you can actually then know that your eye is actually centered in the scope. So there's a lot of scopes out there when you're shooting at extended ranges, and we won't go into actually how far, but if you're shooting beyond 1,000, 2,000 and beyond, there's a lot of scopes out there that you cannot remove the parallax. So this is something that we have to understand ways to fix the problem. So if you pull your head back and get equal scope shadow, even though you don't, or possibly with some scopes can't remove the parallax, this removes all the ill effects of parallax. So the reticle is where you perceive it to be on target. So this is just one option. Obviously, we talked about how to actually fix parallax and what parallax is, but by the use of scope shadow, which used to be taboo, you never wanted to see any scope shadow in the scope. By the use of scope shadow and just a little minimal amount around the outside, it allows you to know where your eye is in relationship to scope, and that your reticle is where you perceive it to be. So this fixes all the problems of the biggest problem that we have in long range training, which is parallax.